Okay, so should we begin? First of all, uh, just because um, I always look at your questions on the both on the normal and the professional forums. I mean, people always ask the same thing, so getting the feeling that information is kind of getting lost. So I thought, like, why not make available like some standard uh classes for you guys to look, so you don't have to be asking all the time. And you guys wanted to talk about layout first, which I think you guys should have done it backwards. Honestly, I was expecting you guys to choose like drawing first and something like that because layout is what comes after that. But okay, I think all of you guys at least can draw and know a bit about animation, so I think it will be okay. We'll still do animation and drawing in a bit, okay? Um, and also we'll see if we do this at the same time next week. I'm not sure because this is like the middle of the afternoon for me, so it's a bit difficult. But we'll see, and we'll let you know. So let's go to layout then. By the way, um, oh, we have max capacity. Oh, that's both great and bad. Like I'm happy there's a lot of people, but this should be this should be more. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, can you see TV Paint? Nice. Okay, so I don't want this to turn into like a university class, but if you guys want to learn like the basic of layouts, we have to go a bit in depth because layout is super important inside um, the animation pipeline. Okay, so we're gonna try to make it like a uh, light talk, and then um, we'll see some demonstrations and stuff. Okay, so let me go to TV Paint, and remember that I'll stop like every few minutes to look at your questions, but you can also talk to me. Like if you have your microphone, you can unmute yourself, I think, and you can also just talk to me and interrupt me at some point. So most of you have seen this already. This is a layout template, which is what the studios give you to do your stuff. I'll explain you each one of these elements in a bit. But first, to understand what layout is, I think the most important thing is to understand uh, where layout is in the pipeline of animation. So to do any kind of animation movie, animation short, or whatever, there's usually three big uh, steps. One is pre-production. The second is production, and next is post-production. Have you guys heard about those? Probably most of you that are professionals have heard of this. The other people might have not because it's what like they teach you on uh, university or stuff like that. So um, pre-production is basically planning all that you're going to do. Here you do uh, your your script, your storyboards, your concepts, your character designs, and all of that. So this is planning. In production, you basically execute everything that you planned. You do the key animation, you do the in betweening, you color the drawings, you do your backgrounds, and you basically prepare all the elements that are going to be on screen. Sound too, but sound kind of goes around animation. So this is execute. And in post production, you put everything together. Like you send it to After Effects. You put the characters and the backgrounds, the effects. You uh, put the sound together and basically export the movie. So this is uh, put everything together. Sorry if I have like a misspell somewhere, but I'm not a native, so you'll have to bear with it. So what am I talking about this? Because layout isn't a super important part of this, because layout is what separates pre-production from production. Layout is here at the beginning of production. And it is so important because everything that you do in pre-production, uh, up until storyboard and animatic, which is basically a video storyboard, is pretty much open to interpretation. What do I mean by that? Storyboards are supposed to be narrative. Uh, the important thing about storyboards is that they are narrating the story, but they are not necessarily showing you everything that's going to be on screen. I don't know if you have seen like Studio Ghibli storyboards. Maybe I should have downloaded some of those for you. But they are very rough. Like you only have the character and maybe like some very basic background. See if I can get you some. And it's basically just telling you the story, but not being super detailed about it. So whatever you see on storyboard is open to interpretation. Uh, the background might be day, night, whatever. Like that's not decided, and of course the models can change, stuff like that. See if I can import this. You see, for example, here you only have the character. Well, you have the background here, but it's still like just some lines and not very detailed at all. For example, at some point, like they might decide, oh, the cat has more legs or less legs and stuff like that. Like the important thing is that the story is understood. What happens in layout is that everything is going to stop being open to interpretation, and you're going to have to define very in a lot of detail what's going to be on screen. That means uh, the final look of the characters, the final look of the backgrounds at some point, uh, and all the layers of the of what's going to be on screen, which is one of the most important stuff. Um, Sorry, I got distracted. So that's the big change. Like before, layout, everything open to interpretation. Layout stops that and makes everything literally what's going to be on screen. So that's what layout is so important. Now, there's different types of layout. Uh, Japanese layout is not the same as Western layout for several reasons, and I'm going to show you some stuff here. I don't know if you have come across these ones, uh, like the Studio Ghibli layouts that look kind of different to the layouts we do now, like in digital anime. This is how layout used to be in general about 20 years ago. Uh, Layout was basically just one drawing where you put all the information. now, as you may know, layout got merged with key animation in Japan, which wasn't the case before. Like you can see here that we just have one important pose, here too, just one important pose, and all of the books and stuff, like they are in the same layer. Now we have to separate everything and animate it when we're doing layout. Why did that change? Because it is cheaper to have one person do everything, but it also affects the quality a lot. Before, layout was used to be done by some of the best animators available, because layout is actually, it is so important, and you actually have to have some knowledge about like filmmaking to do a good layout, because you have to uh put everything in the right place, and that's not easy. Like it takes years to learn. So yeah, now everyone is doing layout, and that's why we have so many corrections all the time. Like it's almost impossible to send a layout and not have a correction. And this is the reason, because now everyone's doing layout. Are you guys having trouble with the video quality? I don't know if that's from my side. Let me know if you can uh, fix it on your side. If not, I'll see what I can do here.
It looks like everyone is having the same problem. So I think it's on your side.
My side, let me see. Yes, I'm just using a virtual webcam. Or it might be Discord.
Also, do you think you could stream instead of using webcam? Because apparently it sets a limit for number of users who can watch to 25.
Oh my. Um, I don't know how to do that, honestly. Like, can you actually stream on Discord instead of like sharing your screen and stuff? Stream button is next to the camera. Oh yeah, but we'll lose the avatar. I think, which might be okay. I don't know. Uh, just give me 1 minute. I'll see what I can do. If not, we'll decide. Mm, yeah, okay. We might lose the avatar this one, but we'll be able to show you. Uh, so I should stop sharing this, I guess. Nice. Okay. So we're talking about layouts being different before, and now merging with keyframe animation, basically. In the West, it happens the other way. In the West, layout got merged with the animatic and the storyboard, and that's because in the West you will send um, companies in the West like Cartoon Network and stuff would uh, do a very detailed animatic and storyboard and then send it to like Korea or China, and then they would not see it for the next 6 months, and they would just receive the completed episode. So everything they send to Asia has to be like super super detailed. Otherwise, it might just derail. And that's why they ended up merging layout with animatic. Like the animatics that Cartoon Network or other companies do in the West are crazy. Thankfully, we don't do that here. But we still have to do like keyframe animation and layout, which kind of sucks. Uh, okay, let's go to the template then. Okay, first thing that you have to know is that every company, every studio has its own template. They all look similar, but they are all different at some point. Like they are different sizes, different resolutions. So you can never use uh, another studio's template on a production. Like if you're working for Mappa, you use the Mappa template, and they have to give it to you. Okay. Um, if you do it the other way, they will just reject it and tell you to do it again. And the other thing you cannot do is resize this at any point. You cannot make it 2 times bigger or smaller. What you can do though is make the canvas bigger. For example, if I have like a big camera movement, I can do this. I didn't change the size of the template. I just made this bigger. Okay. What happens if you change the size? You'll mess up compositing. They'll say like, "Oh, this stuff is not the resolution we need, so it has to be like shot again." Okay. Okay. So let me close this. Most of you already know this, but I'm going to show you how to fill this. Title is the title of the production. I don't know, Jujutsu Kaisen, whatever. This is the number of the episode. This is the number of the cut, and this is the timing. Do you guys all know how to fill this one? Because it's a bit difficult at the beginning. Let me know in the chat. Okay. Yeah, this one took me like before everything was on the internet. It took me years to figure out what they were doing. You know that in animation, 1 second has 24 frames, right? 1 sec, well, 24 frames, which is basically 24 drawings to make it look smooth. So here this is the duration of your cut. Let's say, for example, your cut is 1 second long. This here you have to put the second in the first space. How many seconds? And here you have to put how many extra frames does your cut have that uh, do not add up to 24 frames. Uh, for example, if you have 1 second, here is 0 because you have 24 frames. There's nothing here. If you had 25 frames, here there would be a 1 because you have one more frame up 24. I know it's hard to understand at first, especially because my English is not perfect, but let me try to explain with other numbers. If your cut is 2 seconds long, no, 2 seconds and a half. 2 seconds and a half. How many frames is that? Is 24 plus 12? That's 36. So what do we put here is 24 seconds, which 24 frames, which is 1 second, plus 12. That is 2 seconds plus 12 frames, and that's 36 frames. Do you guys understand? Please let me know. Nice. Okay. It is actually super simple, super simple, but it took me a lot to find out what it actually meant. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah, you'll have to do some math, especially in the timesheets. Not terrible math, but kind of bothersome. So be prepared. So yeah, that's the duration of your cut. So where do you get this information? Where do they tell you the duration of the cut? Is either in the storyboard or in the timesheet. Let me show you a timesheet. I just remember I didn't put here one for you. Uh, Now this is the Tonari timesheet, which I think is one of the nicest timesheets around because we designed it ourselves, trying to not make a terrible timesheet. So it's deliberately good. Uh, Other timesheets, like they're all basically the same, but they have more or less information, depending on the studio. So you can still not share them, like for uh like manners. You don't give a Piero Studio timesheet to Mappa. That would be awkward. But they're all timesheets are basically the same. Uh, and here's the same information, like title, the title of the anime you're working on, episode, scene, which is almost never used, but sometimes they use it. Uh, cut number, duration. Uh, this one is also not necessarily everywhere. Genga is your name if you're doing layout, which is kind of similar to Genga, like you put beast here. Uh, Doga, you don't have to fill it. Compositing, you don't have to fill it. And page, this is something that we added because sometimes you have a ton of pages. Uh, but it's generally just one. One from one of two, one of three. You'll see later. Uh, Most timesheets do not have this, which is a number of cells. Like if I don't know, my A layer has 3 drawings, I put 3. If B has 2, I put 2, and the total is 5. That helps the PA basically to do budget. But most timesheets in Japan do not have this. We just put it ourselves. We also have a area that's called memo. Here you're going to put all the camera instructions and special effects and any other special note uh, that you, for example, want to communicate to the director or something like that. You put it here. Generally, it's just something like uh, pan up, A to B, something very simple like that. Uh, but sometimes you'll have this like filled with stuff, like very little text. I saw some uh, Evangelion timesheets, and their memos are filled with stuff because they have so much CG effects that they have to put everything here. Okay, any questions before we go down this? We're going to come back to this later because we have to like I have to teach you how to fill it, but I'm just going to teach you which like what is what here. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll wait just a few seconds. How many people do we have, by the way? Oh, we have a lot of people. Nice, very nice. Okay, just waiting for one comment to appear, and we continue. Why we added the cell counter on the timesheet? I can tell you now. It's because if you don't have it, you have to count each one, and the producers don't like to do that, so they asked like the layout people to do it because it takes a lot of time. That's the only reason. And it's funny because I'm generally the director here, and I the animators fill this, and I come here and correct it, and I don't know, erase a couple of drawings or add some more. And as I don't have time to like correct all of this and count all of this, I just do this, and the producers have to count it. Yeah, that happens. Okay, so let's talk about what's here. Uh, you see here several uh letters and numbers. What you're seeing here is basically a timeline, just like in any animation software. It's just that it is vertical instead of horizontal. You could pretty much look at this way, and it will be the same. Whoops. A layer is at the bottom, and then every layer that you add up on top is B, C, D, E, F, G until infinite. We actually put more layers here. Like most timesheets in Japan are like here, and then if you have to add more layers because you need them for your layout, you have to like uh modify the timesheet with Photoshop, which is a big pain. So we said like, okay, let's just put more layers into it so we don't have to do that so often. So when you're doing layout, you're going to have to fill this part, all of this, and all of this, because this part, like this half of the timesheet, is just a continuation of this one. So every timesheet is 6 seconds long, and that's 144 frames. So we go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 72, and then they continue here 73, 74, blah, 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 blah. That's just so the timesheet it's not like meters long like it happens in the West. I don't know if you have seen like Western timesheets. They are meters long, which is ridiculous. So Japanese people just put them side by side and like crunch some more seconds into the paper. We also in Tonari put like these markers to tell you where every second is because sometimes it get lost. It just helps the animator like pinpoint better the timing. And if your cut is longer uh than 6 seconds, you just have to add uh another cheat, which in 99% of the cases will be just a normal cheat, which will begin in one. So here's when you have to do like this bothersome math, because this is not actually one. This is 145, 146, 147, and you'll have to calculate like, okay, if my cut ended up here in the 20th second of the second sheet, uh, which is the actual number of the frame, which is a big pain. Now in Tonari, we were kind of fed up with that, so we said we actually made more pages, which I don't have here, but we made like 3 or 4 pages with the correct numbers, so that if you need uh, an extra sheet, you would use the second sheet of Tonari, which has the correct numbers, because we were just fed up of doing math. Uh, yeah. So basically, layout, you have to fill this one. This one is for the Doga people, which is basically the people that do in between and cleanup, which in the West are called the assistant animators. So in layout, you don't have to fill this. What you have to fill though is camera. If you have some camera movement or some special effects, like for example pan up. I always use pan up. A to B, which is basically the camera moving like this. A to B. So you have to see how much time that uh, effect is going to take you. Let's say it's just 1 second from the beginning. So that you put A to B here in 24. You'll do something like this. You can put pan up. And that's basically your instruction. You don't even need this. You see? Sometimes this will have nothing, and sometimes it would be filled with lines and stuff, because the cut just has so many effects. Yeah, that's basically timesheet. Timesheets are actually very easy uh to fill. Like people feel intimidated by them, but they're just tedious. Very tedious to to fill. I always say like when I go to conventions and stuff, like if you work on computer stuff and uh you invent a software that fills the timesheet by itself, you will be a millionaire, because everyone will want it. Okay, there's a question. Would you have to rewrite the camera notes in the memo too? Yeah, it has to be in both in the memo and in the camera column. Okay. Okay. Oh, one last thing. We were talking about like the duration. Like, how do you know the duration of your cut? I told you that you can get it here in the storyboard. Like for example, here is 2.5, uh, which I guess is 2.5 seconds. Uh, which is a different notation. This movie is so old that they might have been using a different notation, but this one is 6.0, so it's 6 seconds. So there you have the duration of this cut at least. Uh, but sometimes if you're lucky, the production will give you your timesheet for will give you a timesheet for each cut, and the timesheet will be filled uh, a bit by the director. But that's only if they have time to help you. So you might get a timesheet that looks like this. It will have the name, the episode, the cut, and the duration. Let's say 2 seconds. I will not have your name or anything here, but it might have some timing, uh, like indications. Like for example, this cut has in the storyboard has one, two, three, four, five panels. 5 panels. One, two, three, four, five. What the directors sometimes do is to give you the timing. It says like, okay, and they will use this generally this part to tell you, just because they don't want to write on this one. They'll say like, okay, uh, first panel is here, second panel is here, third panel is here, fourth panel is here, and fifth one is here, just to help you with the timing, so that your cut is more accurate to what they want. Uh, if they do that, you have to follow it. You don't have to be like exact. You can move maybe 2 frames up, 2 frames down. Like if something is not like working 100% for you, but you have to follow it in general. Okay. Oh, and the other thing that they'll do, if they give you the timesheet, they will cut it. When the duration you reach the duration of the cut, you have to cut it, which is basically doing this. This is how it's done. Like you say, like from here on, there's nothing. This is where the cut ends. Okay, that's cutting the timesheet. Okay, enough about timesheets. Do you have any question before we go back to actual layout? Someone's asking. I've heard a lot of people use the Toy timesheet plugin for CSP. Yes, but the thing is, not even Toy likes that software. I think the software was kind of a failure because a long time ago, Tonari tried to use it for a toy production, and they didn't like it. They're like, "Why are you using this like piece of crap?" So yeah, it's generally not accepted that you use it because just doing it by hand is more precise. I wait a few seconds for more questions. Remember that you can also talk to me. You don't have to write if you have a microphone. If you Oh, I forgot to talk about dialogue too, but that's very short. If you have a dialogue scene where the camera cuts between multiple characters talking, is that a whole new sequence under one timesheet? No. Like if the camera cuts, it's a new cut. If the camera moves like physically from one character to another, then it is the same cut. And for a new cut, new timesheet, even if it's the same situation. Oh my, everyone is writing. Okay, I'll wait for you. Okay. Can you give a quick example of in between notation? I'll give it after I show you some stuff in layout, like just in a few minutes, okay? Because I need to explain some other stuff. Is the A layer the furthest from the camera? Yes. Apart from the background, which is in the background, of course, the A layer is the furthest cell that we call from the camera. Do you know why we call them cells? Uh, like no one actually called them like layers. We call them cells because it comes from celluloid when they used to use that for like real photographed animation. That's why we call them cells. Like when you communicate with the Japanese people, you call them seru. You don't call them layers. Okay, waiting for the last comment. Okay, this is probably the best for when you go over how to concrete stuff in layout timesheet. How would CGI stuff and effects animation work? Okay, yeah, I'll explain that too. Uh, Sorry if it's a bit out of context, but can you talk a bit about yourself? Uh, I'll talk a bit about myself when we finish layout. Okay. If we do it in less than 2 hours. By the way, uh, Dango, can you let me know when we are close to 2 hours because I just talk and lose uh my
Sure.
sense of time. Thank you. Okay. Uh, yes, but let me show you just a bit about drawing, and then we go back to timesheet because it is important. I'm gonna be honest. I actually struggle a lot to find something that I could show you because I have a ton of like anime materials that I cannot show you, like storyboards and stuff. Even if they are old, studios don't like those to be in public. So I brought this cut that I made for a soccer anime like 3 years ago, and I don't think anyone is going to notice that I show it to you, or anyone is going to care. So that's the animation. It's very simple, but I think it has like everything to explain you what's what happens in layout. You like it? I actually put a lot of effort in this one, even if it was very simple. I wanted it to be pretty, so it's very clean and all of that. And I also have like all the layers here, so I can talk to you about that. So for that cut, they gave me a storyboard, which I'm going to show you in a second. They gave me this. It was basically a storyboard, which is detailed enough. Like you'll hardly find any storyboard more detailed than this in Japanese animation, which contrasts a lot in the West. Like in the West, like the storyboards are basically layout, as I told you, but here is just like very very simple things. Now, if I got this, the first thing I would do, I would take it. I would just cut it from whatever sheet it is written on, and I would bring it to my layout template. I'll put my layout template on the top and put it in multiply so that everything I have below it uh, can be seen, but with the template on top of it. Can you see that? So, one of the mistakes a lot of people commit when they're beginning to do layout is to basically trace the storyboard as it is, which is like the worst thing you can do because uh, these storyboards, like the actual physical size of this in the paper, is very very small, like smaller than your hand, so they are not going to be precise. As I told you, like storyboards are narrative, so they are meant to be interpreted. So the first thing that you have to do here is to actually decide how to frame it. Like I can move it, I can make it a bit bigger, a bit smaller. If I'm doing layout, I'm basically the one who decides how this is going to be framed. One thing that's very useful that you can do is going to erase this for a bit. Do a selection, invert, and do a mask, a black mask on top of your layout template so that you're just seeing what's going to be on the screen. So this way is way easier to see how to frame this. Okay. So that's very important. Like when you're doing layout, you decide the best way to frame the cut. You don't have to follow it like completely. Sometimes the storyboards, like one in a million times, the storyboards are just beautiful and perfect, and you can just trace them. But most of the time, you cannot. Oh, another important thing about the layout template, before I forget, is that we have a lot of lines here. Like we have this like black line, like that's more marked than the rest. That's the border of the screen. Okay, like everything inside this is going to be on screen, but we have some others too. We have a gray or dotted line inside the black line. That's called a, it's like a safety limit. I don't remember the exact word for it, but it basically means that everything important inside the cut has to be inside the gray line, because when you get outside the gray line and in between the black one, here every detail is going to be basically not seen by the viewer. This is actually a very very old standard. It came from when televisions were round. Do you guys, are you guys old enough to remember where when there were not flat screens and the televisions were like made of glass and they were round? Well, when televisions were round, like this part of the screen would be rounded inside, kind of inside of the of the device. So whatever you put here would actually not be visible. So, for example, if you have text inside the screen, it could not be here. Uh, if you had text, it could not be here, for example, because it would be lost. It has to be here or whatever, like inside the gray line. And yeah, so that's a very very old standard. The other line that is present is this one gray line outside the uh, the black one. This is another safety limit, which means that whatever you draw here, for example, we have a character. I cannot do this character and end it here at the border of the screen. I have to draw it until here, at least, until the grain line. Why is that? Because after you draw your layout, a lot of people is going to manipulate it, like the especially composite people, the people that will actually do the camera and stuff. And they're going to move stuff. Maybe the director will take your drawing and say, I don't like it here, I like it here. But if you didn't draw it until the gray line, uh, your character will appear cut at the bottom or or the sides, whatever. Like here, for example, you drew it like this, and then the director said, like, no, I want it a bit up, but this part is not drawn, so it would have to be redrawn, and that's a pain. So that's why this safety limit exists outside of the screen. Another thing that happens a lot on anime, and you will notice from now on, is that when you have a cut and the person didn't draw enough, and they'll have, for example, a camera shake, the camera would move outside of the black line, and the character will appear cut underneath. It happened in One Punch Man in the fight where Saitama fights Genos, I think. You can actually see some of the characters cut at the border because there was not enough drawing. You can search it and you'll see it. So yeah, that's basically those lines. And the other ones are pretty self-explanatory. Like we're just showing you where the middle is of everything so that you can like just frame your stuff better. Some people like to put like the 3/4 thing, like this one that you use for like photography. But generally you don't really need it. Like you kind of instinctively know that there are important points here to take in account. So that's basically it. Oh, and one last thing that people sometimes ask is what is this? Uh, these are basically digital peg holes. Like a peg hole is something you use when you animate on paper. I think you can see them here. You see that these are actual holes in the paper, and you use it to it's technically called a register, but it's so that your layers don't get spread around and everything is in the same place all the time. And you still need that digitally. Uh, so something that you cannot do is ever move or erase these. They have to be always there. Okay, never move them, never erase them or whatever. Okay. Okay, I feel like I've talked a lot. Any questions? Maybe I'll just go for a glass of water. Give me 30 seconds. I'll be back. I'm back. Okay, there's some people writing. Oh, said you had to leave, but yeah, it will be recorded, so hopefully you can watch it later. Someone's asking, I didn't really get what the registers. Let me see if I can find an image that can explain it better. Okay, the person who asked, can you see the image? Look at here. Those are the holes that we're talking about. In the West, people use them on the bottom. Japanese people use them on the top, but that's really not important. Uh, Look at how he moves everything, but the drawings are always like on the same place because they're put on the peg bar, which is called like this metal thing. So whatever he does, like whatever however he moves or manipulates the paper is always on the same place. And digitally it's the same. Like if your drawings get scattered for some reason, like for example when PAs print and then scan stuff back, you can always put them together again by placing them on the peg holes and comparing like the peg holes from this one, the peg holes from this one, and then you can put everything on the place it should be. Nice. Yeah, it's basically like a flip book, a big flip book. Okay, just a few seconds, and we start again. Oh my god, there's more and more people. Even though people is leaving, there's a lot of people. Someone's asking, what about when the BG is oversized in relation to the layout template? Do they print out the BG on a bigger piece of paper? No, what they do is even cheaper. They they just print the thing on several pages and they just tape it together. There's probably some Ghibli stuff around like that. Let's see. I used to do that a lot on at university. At university, I animated on paper, so we used to do that a lot. We just uh, paste stuff together with tape. Ba- 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 But yeah, something weird about like working with Japan is that they have not decided yet if they want to be digital or they want to be like analog. So they kind of mix it and make a mess out of it. Look at this. Can you see it is taped? That's how they do it. The thing is, in Japan, there's a lot of the older animators, which are like the best animators around, are still working on paper because they just don't want to work digitally. It's too much of a pain to change. So studios basically cater to them. So the new people that do everything digitally, they receive the digital thing and generally just uh, print it. And then when they send it back to you with correction, they scan it again and they make a mess because they never scan it well. And you have to like that's why you use the digital peg holes because you have to put everything together once they mess it up. That happens all the time. Okay, let's see more questions. How big can you get? As much as necessary? Yes, as much as necessary. There are some very big backgrounds. How big are the studio scanners? They are big, but not too big. Again, if you guys are old enough and remember when scanners didn't come with the printers, because now you get a printer and a scanner like all together. Before you had to buy the scanner like separate, and they were kind of big, like a bit bigger than normal scanners. That's basically a studio scanner, uh, just a bit bigger than the paper. Someone's asking, how can you deal with too bad storyboards? If you cannot read the storyboard, you just have to ask the your producer to ask the director for clarification. It happened to me a couple of times. Like the storyboards were impossible to read, so I have to ask like, "Hey, we cannot read this. We cannot use it." So they said, "Oh, sumimasen." Like, we'll ask the director to redraw a bit over it, and that generally helps. But yeah, like they're yeah, like by drawings, like they're storyboards that are terribly drawn, like stick figures, and everything is like uh smudged, and you just cannot read it. It happens. Okay, just a few more questions, and we come back to uh, layout. As an animator working from home, would studios let you work on paper? If you can print templates and scan in good quality, yes, they will let you. You can do that, but almost no one does. Um, can you talk a bit about communication? How much Japanese is necessary for first language? I can do that at the end. Oh, someone's talking, but I can hear you. Like, can you try to repeat that? Okay, just someone's asking. You said we can expand the canvas, but do they ever not like it? Like, is it expanded a lot, a ton? Generally, when you have to expand the canvas, it is like very clear on the storyboard because the storyboard uh shows you generally the camera movement. So it will generally show you like, okay, the camera moves from here to here, and that's approximately two fields, which is like two screens. So you can expand it by the double, right? Um, but yeah, there's some other instances where they won't give you uh, that detail. For example, in it's very hard to storyboard accurately fighting scenes because everything moves all the time. So fighting scenes storyboards are not very detailed. So they generally give you a bit of leeway to do whatever you want, but sometimes you just exaggerate and they don't like it, and they will say, "Oh, can you do it without the camera movement, or can you make this not so big?" That could happen. It hasn't happened to me, but it could happen. Someone's asking, someone's saying, "I know a guy who just uses Google Translate." I used Google Translate for a lot of time. It works, but there's risks, so be careful. And last one. What's the real size of a layout paper? Of your layout paper in analog? Is it basically A4? Yes, A4 for Japanese layouts. If you're in the West, a bit sometimes it's a bit difficult to get A4 because that's kind of a North American uh um thing. So you can also use like letter, but as long as you have the peg holes, like the peg holes that we look at in anime are called Acme peg holes, like Acme from like Bugs Bunny stuff, like Acme peg hole. So like this, two lines and one dot in the middle, and those are very standard. Like if you buy Acme peg bars, and they will always be the same, like exactly the same size. So you can use them uh for Japan or for whatever. Uh, the hard thing, like if you want to work on paper from your home and you want to like scan it and send it like everything like they use it there, the hard thing for you is going to get uh an Acme puncher, which are very hard to get. Uh, I do have one. It weighs like 25 kilos and it's made of steel, and it's almost as old as me because I got it from my university when they got rid um of the traditional animation department. I said like, "Hey, can I keep this one so that you don't throw it to the trash?" And they gave it to me. But yeah, Dango is right. I think you can buy pre-punched paper. I've never done it though, but it should work. And I don't know how expensive that would be because when you work on paper, you use a ton of paper, a ton of paper. It goes away very quickly. So that's something to have in mind. I know there's also some portable punchers which are not enormous. Like they're like hand punchers, but I don't know how good they are. I know Tonari bought one, but I don't know if it actually works as it should. But I know they exist. Okay, shall we go back to layout then? So one of the most important things on layout, apart from framing, duration, and all of those stuff, is I'll show you this later. Is to decide the layers that are going to be on your layout. That's basically up to you, unless the director tells you like I want these layers, which generally doesn't happen. Uh, but yeah, you have to decide. Okay, I have to animate this. How am I going to layer it? For example, in this cut that I did, what do we have? Oh, why is it not showing? Oh, here. What do we have? We have a girl, and she's talking, and we have this like sparkles around her. So how would I layer this? You always begin from A. Do you remember the timesheet? A is the farthest away from the camera. Like the camera is here, filming in this direction. But you always have to begin from A. Like you cannot begin from B or C. So what would be A in this case? Here, I guess the girl, right? Like the girl would be A. Like of course we don't take in account the VG. And the girl is talking, so I have to move her mouth. There are different ways to do that, but generally, if it's just a simple movement, you would do the mouth in another layer, which is what I did. Show you. So we go to A, and if I erase it, you see that it is the girl. Let me turn off the camera though. It's kind of bothersome. Right. If I go here and erase A, it's the girl. There's also this shadows. I'm going to talk a bit about shadows later and highlights and stuff, but it's basically A2. Like it's the same layer, it's just different layers in the um, file. Whoops. And the mouth is the next layer, which is B, and should be here. See? And then I just made it flap. Like when you have a dialogue in anime, you don't have to do lip sync as you do in the West. In the West, when you're animating something, they generally give you the sound and they ask you to put every mouth in order to make it uh, look like a character is talking. When you're doing layout, you don't have to do that. That's done in compositing in Japan. So they'll just ask you to give them the mouths, and they will put them in order. And we have to talk a bit about the mouths here because it's something a lot of people struggle at the beginning. So in Japanese animation, there are three basic mouths. One is closed, closed mouth. Two is half open, and three is open. Okay. You only when you're doing layout, you only have to draw one and three because two is basically an in between, so you don't have to draw it. So I'm going to do it again just for you. Let's say this character is talking. This is one, and three. Mouth full open. This is what I have to give them. Two, they know that they have to do it themselves. And this is how you would notate it. When you're showing, you have to do like this little column, this little like curve here. You have to write uh Serifu, I guess. Let me know if I'm miswriting it because I've been studying Japanese, so my stuff is getting like confused. Serifu means dialogue, basically in Japanese, and this is the actual narration. I actually have it here. Yes, it's well written. So first mouth closed, you do a circle on the one. Third mouth full open, you do the same. Serifu, and you do a circle on the three. So it will look like this. You see, there's no circle on the two because you didn't draw it. But if it's present here, they will know that they have to draw it themselves. That's for the in-betweener. Okay? A lot of people, when they're beginning, they draw the three mouths and they make it flap like on the preview. Like it should look like this when you export like the preview. It should look like this without the thing is this, like it should look like this. Each mouth should be 3 frames too. See, 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and it will look like this, which is very presentable. If you do it less, like 2 for example, it will look too fast, and that's wrong. If you do it in 1, it will be ridiculous, like this. So you do it in 3, so it doesn't look that bad. A lot of people do the middle mouth, which is, as I told you, not necessary, and it looks terrible. And that's also a mistake. Like if you draw the middle mouth and it's just an in between, like your PAs will know that you're a newbie basically, because everyone knows you shouldn't. If you do this, for example, if you do this, everyone will know you're a newbie. Okay, it's kind of unnecessary complication, but it's like anime manners to say something like that. Okay, so just try to remember that. You don't draw the middle mouth. Okay. Someone's asking, can you be messy with your layers as long as the cells are correct? Do you mean in the file? It depends. If you're sending the file to the studio, which some studios ask you to, you cannot be messy because they'll just hate you. If you're not sending them the file, it's okay because you have to export it later. Like you have to export the JPEGs, so it doesn't matter. Um, Actually, my files are kind of messy, but I just don't send it to them, so whatever. So okay, um, let's go back to the cuts, the actual cut. So as I told you, uh this cut I made it like 3 years ago, and I was just beginning to do anime, so I could have done it better because I made all of those sparkles in once, which is very uncommon. They look nice, right? But doing stuff on once is very, very uncommon. And I made one layer for each, which I could have just merged them because they are all on once. You can just merge all of these layers and make one layer. So that was a newbie decision to have one layer for each, like totally unnecessary. What was the result? They just got rid of the sparkles. They just didn't want to touch them. So that kind of stuff will happen when you're a newbie. But I mean, it kind of worked in the end. Like it will look the same on the screen, but if you have less layers, you'll make everyone's life easier. They basically just opened my file and they said, like, "Oh, this is a mess. Like, let's just get rid of this all these layers." And I think in the anime, the sparkles are gone. Oh, another thing that you guys might have noticed is that I talked to you about the mouths 1, 2, 3. This one only has two. Did you notice? And that's because this is like a comical, like looking cut. So I thought it looks way funnier if it just open and closed. So I didn't let them do an in between here. But that was my personal uh decision. Okay, 99% of the time you need the three mouths. Okay, okay. I don't remember what I did with the background here. I think I just copied what it said. They gave me this. Can anyone read this? I cannot because I don't remember what I had to do with the background.
Image BG.
Oh, okay. That means they were going to. Um, I didn't have to draw it. They had like um like a gradient or something like that. In Western animation, that's called a limbo. When you have, I don't know, like sparkles and stuff for your background, that's called a limbo. When you have just a color or a color gradient, that's called a color card. But in Japan, they don't use uh those terms, so they just call it like image VG, and they tell you not to draw it. Like they already have it. So yeah, I finished studying hiragana uh like 3 days ago, and I can read all hiragana, but I haven't started katakana at all, so I cannot read this. Okay. Um. So we talk about BG, layers, AV. Um. Basically, it's your decision, as I said, like how you're going to layer it, but you have to try to make everyone's life easier. And not be messy like me, doing 1,000 unnecessary layers. Uh. And we can talk about camera. So as I show you on the storyboard, this is what they gave me. So it basically has a trackback, which is called when the camera is close to something and then gets far away from something. It's called a trackback, and that's what I did here. Let me mm, do a transparent layer just to show you. So that's my camera notation. It was actually a quick trackback, which is basically a trackback that's quick. That's basically it, but it has its own notation, and it has two poses. A, the first one where we begin from here, and B, the big one. So the notation on the timesheet would be something like we go to the memo and we will write uh, whoops. Oh, I'm on white. We'll write creek track back A to B. And we will draw it here too in camera. I don't know how long it was. Camera show. So it was from 26, from frame 26 to frame 30. So it was just 4 frames. That's why it was quick track back timesheet. So it was from 26 A B. QTB. That's it. That's basically it. Someone's asking, does the triangle with the B in the lower left corner means anything? That's how I notate it. Uh, I do it like this, just because I think it is clear. Because most people, when they do camera movement, they will do like this. Oh, well, they will do the A and B and C or whatever. They will do it like this outside of the camera, like, and that kind of get confused with all of the other letters on the actual layers. So I notated with a triangle like here, like being part of the actual camera. But that's how I do it. Okay, someone's asking, do you always need to draw perspective grid when doing layout? 99% of the time. In this one specifically, no, because they told me they had the BG, and it's basically a limbo, so it's not a real BG. Like, there's no perspective on it. But whenever you do need like a real BG, yes, you do have to do at least the the perspective grid, unless it is, for example, like a blue sky with nothing on it. Then you could maybe not draw the perspective grid, but it would be even better if you did, because it is useful. And for perspective grid, like, it's something very simple, honestly. Like, perspective grid could be something like this. You just have to find the artisan line, which here is like here, something like this. Of course, it depends on the perspective of the actual cut, but a lot of time, like, something like that is enough, like, just to give it a bit of 3D. But as I said, like, it depends on the perspective of the actual cut. Okay, how much time do we have left?
Half an hour.
Okay. Is there anything important I might be forgetting? Because I could like layout is very big topic, so we could talk about this for a lot of time. But I just wanted to show you like the very basic stuff. Oh, let's talk a bit about for a second about shadows. A lot of people ask like, do I have to draw the shadows for the characters, or like do I have to do it for every pose or not? Draw the shadows for the most important poses. Uh, Generally, it's just one for each character. Uh, but in layout, you don't need shadows for every pose, just for the most important. What is the most important? You generally know which one is the most important. Like you're doing your layout, like you have to know which one is the most important keyframe. And if it's not clear which one is the most important because they're all similar, like just draw it on whatever one, whichever keyframe, and you do the shadows and highlights. When you go to Negan, though, you will have to draw the shadows um, for every pose, and that's a pain. So be prepared. Okay, someone's asking how much layout you do in a normal day. Generally, four, something like that. It something like this takes me like an hour or 2 hours to do. A normal layout. This one is easy. This one I'm showing you is a very easy layout. A normal layout generally takes me like 2 hours, and a difficult layout can take me all day. But on a normal day of work, I would do four. Like that's enough for a day of work. All right. Someone asked about CG and effect animation. Okay. Uh, when you have something CG, uh, they generally tell you from the beginning. Like for example, in Black Clover. Oh, sorry. Uh, now it should be visible. In Black Clover, all the books, like the Grimoires, are CG, and they tell you this book is CG. So you just have to draw like the outline, a very rough outline of the CG object, and write CG on it, and they will know that they have to replace it. I don't know if I can actually find that cut of Black Clover. I probably don't have it anymore. But it's as simple as that. Whoops. How about now? Sorry, when I click out of TV Paint, it just turns it off. But I'm not drawing anything. I'm just talking now. Okay, someone's asking. As layout, you can ask to redraw the storyboard. Can you suggest different camera angles? You can, but they'll probably never listen to you because I don't know. You have to be like a very respected animator to ask the director to do anything. I don't know. Like Jen could ask the director to change the camera angle, but if you do it or if I do it, they'll probably never listen to me. Uh, yeah, and also like I said that you can ask to redraw the layout, but that's a very unlikely situation. What's more likely to happen is that they'll say, "Oh, sorry, like we cannot work with you. Bye." But yeah, I've had the situation when I asked, like, "Hey, can you ask the director for some clarification?" Like, you have to be very polite. They'll say, "Oh, we will try," and they give you like just a few more stick figures to so you can figure out what's happening. Okay. Uh, People are asking about impact frames and effects and stuff. Most of the effects, like for example, smoke or fire or water or explosions, they're just cells. They are A, B, C, exactly the same as characters. Okay. Um, what could happen and what I use sometime is um when you do like impact frames, you can make sometimes the screen full white or full black, and that has annotation, which I don't know if I can find at this exact moment. Maybe go maybe to Boruto. I did something like that. It looks like I didn't know that notation by then. Let's see if I did it on Black Clover. It's like a very specific notation that you put on the camera thing, and you say like, please make this frame black. Basically that. Um, Another thing that's maybe important for you to know is that there's a lot of standard notations, like stuff that are always done the same way, like camera movements, like pans, track backs, track ups, and stuff. But sometimes you find stuff that are not that easy to explain with just annotation. In that case, you can write the instructions in the memo that you can say, hello, can you do this, move the camera this way, like, and explain it. You can do that if you are in like a special situation, right? If you don't find the exact notation you want, you can try to explain it in the memo. I've had to do that a couple of times. Actually, I did it in this episode that I'm showing you. uh, I can show you this.
We can only see TV Paint.
Yeah. No worries. Uh, can you see T-Paint now?
Yeah.
Can you see? Yeah. I'm going to show you something to get scared. This is the most difficult timesheet I've ever filled, and it is basically a, c- a lot of girls running and talking at the same time in a football field. So it has a ton of layers, a ton of this right here. You see this arrow? This arrow that goes from one layer to the other? That's a layer transfer. You do that when you take part of one layer and you put it on another layer, which is it's actually very simple, but it's a pain when you have to do it a lot of times because you have to keep like um you have to uh, be very careful when you put everything. And here, like this code was so complicated that I actually like explained the person that comes after me what to do. Uh, this basically says like this girl is moving, so I just drew the mouth. So please match the mouth to the character because I could not make the character move and the mouth move at the same time and make them talk. Like it was too much for the timesheet. So I just explained to them what to do, and they did it, and it worked. And yeah, this is a nightmare timesheet. Honestly, it took me like a day to do. Yeah. Um, I think someone asked me before about in between notations, right? In between notations, there's basically just two for the timesheet, which is just a basic in between, which is these lines, and an in between guide, which are the triangles. Those are the only two normal uh, in betweens. Now, this is something that I could cover more in the animation stream because this is just layout. Like, there will be an actual animation stream where I can tell you, like, very specifically how to identify when something is an in between guide, when it is a key, because it has its own topic. Oh, you're right. Some people use it, some others don't. Uh, some people, um, when you have like a loop, for example, like something, an animation looping, and the in betweens repeat, like this means uh, the the in betweener doesn't have to draw the same in between twice. You just do a circle to tell them like this in between you already drew it, so don't draw it again. I think Dong Chang explains that at some point, but I didn't. I didn't use it up until very recently. You will very rarely find it. Like I've only seen a couple of timesheets with that on it, with the circles. Okay, so well, as I told you, we could talk about this forever. I think we can talk about filling the timesheet on the animation stream, um, because it will take us a lot of time, and it's yeah, it's not that short to explain. Um, so you can ask me stuff for the moment, I think, and we can just like end up the stream just with your questions. Okay. Someone's asking someone's asking, can you talk a bit about communication? How much Japanese is necessary for foreign freelancers? Okay. I just now, like after 3 or 4 years to working with Japan, I'm just now learning Japanese for real. Before that, I only used translators, but it's not that easy because translators are generally very bad. So you have to translate and retranslate everything a couple of times to have kind of the context of what you're talking about. Uh, and I'm also in kind of a privileged position because I work on Tonari, and Tonari uh, has Japanese producers, so I can just ask them to translate stuff for me. Which, if you're a freelancer, you generally cannot do that. Um, you can use the translator for talking to the PA on Twitter, for example. You have to be very careful though. Like as I said, like retranslate the thing a couple of times to make it very clear what you're saying. That it becomes difficult when you have handwritten Japanese, for example, in the storyboard. Uh, that's impossible to read for someone who doesn't know Japanese. So, what I would do in that case, I would say very, very politely to the PA, hey, like I'm having trouble reading the handwritten stuff on the storyboard. Can I ask you please to write it for me on a document? Like I wouldn't ask them to translate it for me. I would ask them to type it so that I can copy paste it to a translator, or I can use like the visual translator on Google and and have a translation. But I would not ask the PA to translate stuff for me because they generally don't have time to do it, and they don't do it very well because they don't know English either. So it's kind of useless to ask them to translate stuff for you. Okay, you have to make their lives easier too. Okay, someone asked, what are the vertical lines? Oh, that's actually a good question. If we are talking about the same thing, we can talk about this on the animation stream. But the vertical lines basically mean that you're holding the drawing. If I have drawing one on A and I have a vertical line, it means that I'm just showing one until something changes, which is here like an in between, and then I continue. There are two kinds of lines you can do. If you do one, for example, and a vertical and a straight line like this, it generally means that there's something in the future that's going to change. Like, for example, two. If you have a straight line, it means there's something in the future. There's another drawing. If you do one and a squiggly line, it means there's nothing in the future. And it's going to be just one until the end of the timesheet. Okay. Okay. Someone asked, how do you know, how do you time each mouth shape to the dialogue correctly? You don't. As I told you, when you do layout, 99% of the time, they won't ask you to do lip sync. They just ask you for the basic mouth, open and closed. Um, there are some uh, productions that will ask you for extra mouths, like O, for example. Uh, for example, I think Boruto asked for some extra mouths, but they'll let you know. And if you're a Japanese animator and you can read like the column, the dialogue column, because sometimes they'll fill this column. Uh, this one right here is the dialogue column, and it actually has dialogue here. You see, if you can read that, you can try to time the the lips somehow, but it's generally useless. But because they'll use the same mouths, like they'll only use open and closed, so you're basically just wasting time trying to time it. Now, if you're doing like a Sakuga thing, like there's a cut I like a lot that I can show you, maybe. da. Give me a second. See if I can download this. This is a cut I like a lot from this anime, and it's basically a Sakuga dialogue. In this case, there's so much acting in the character that yes, you can actually lip sync it. But it's one in 1,000 times that you'll have to do something like that. I in all the years I've done it, I've done anime. I've never had to do something like this. I would love to, but I haven't had the opportunity. Give it a second to look. You see that this person actually made the lip sync, and it's everything very well timed and very careful with the mouths. Like we have a syllables and stuff. She's saying like Kampeki. Oh, Kampeki. You see? But as I said, like this is a very rare opportunity when you can do something like this. Basically, Sakuga acting dialogue. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh my god, there's a ton of people watching. Every time there's more. Or maybe I don't know if there's any professional looking. Oh, if you notice that I missed something, which I probably did, you let me know because I just talk a lot. So yeah, what you guys think about that? As I told you, I will do an extra stream about just animation, like not layout, animation, like keyframes and in between and um, timing and spacing and all of that stuff. I'll do a proper stream for that probably next week. And I'll also do one about drawing because that's super important because drawing for animation is not the same as drawing for illustration or a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff of extra stuff that you have to take in account. Okay, that's probably going to be next week, like animation next week and drawing next week, or maybe backwards. I don't know. I'll I'll decide. And the the ideas you gave for streams too, like in the I don't know how it's called, the topic pools. We will go through those and see if we can take some of those and make a special streams for each one, or maybe just put it into one of the big streams. Okay, so that you guys have like a general view of all the stuff you have to you have to know to work on this. Okay, someone is asking. I didn't know if you already received this question like this already, but what would you recommend for curating a portfolio for getting your first anime job? what would that first job usually look like? Okay, I received that question actually on every stream. um, when I was trying to get an anime job, it was a bit more difficult than now. It was like 4 years ago, and it was more difficult to get an anime job. Uh, but it was basically the same. Like you have to put your stuff on Twitter. It's always Twitter, and basically show them that you know how to work on their um, on their format, which means that you know how to notate uh, your keyframes and how to do your spacing charts. Uh, maybe how to fill a timesheet. You can upload your timesheets too. Like that would be amazing for them. Like if they can see that kind of stuff from you, because a lot of people when they want to get an anime job just do some crazy Sakuga stuff. Uh, and producers generally ignore that kind of stuff because it doesn't tell them too much. It doesn't tell them if you're organized, if if you can. Uh, it basically doesn't tell them if you know how to do the job. So do not focus on being impressive on your portfolio. Focus on showing them that you can do the job, like the actual job. Okay, we're nearing 2 hours, but I can stay here for I don't know a few minutes more. Someone said, for me, I did fan animation and I got the job. Me too. Like I did, I think it was a collab with some other animators that landed my first job. And my first job was uh, Black Clover. I was layout for Black Clover and I was totally not prepared for that. And I messed it up badly. But somehow they still called me again. They must have been very desperate. Mm. One thing that I won't have time to cover this time, but we can do it later, is notations for layout. Like there's a ton of notations, and sadly, it's not very easy to get them on the internet. There's only a few documents like the Satsuma, which everyone knows, I think, but even the Satsuma doesn't have like all of the important ones. There is the Tonari manual. Tonari actually has one of the best notation manuals in the whole industry, but I cannot give it to you because it's from Tonari. Maybe we could ask permission, but I don't know if they'll say yes because uh like every time someone from other studio like I don't know Wit or Cloverworks or someone like that look at our manual, they say like, "Oh my god, we wish we had something like this because this one is the best." So yeah, um, I actually have my sheet how to say cheat sheet uh of notations. Oh, maybe I erased it. I think I closed it. I have a little copy paste thing of the most common notations here, so I don't have to um, write them all the time. I just copy paste them, and I'm pretty sure some of this is miswritten because this is very old, but it has worked. So don't take it like 100% for me. Like if you want to, like I don't know, like screenshot it, it's okay, but take an extra look to see if everything is well written because it might not.
The repeat is wrong.
Which one?
Repeat.
Repeat?
Yeah.
Which one? What's? What's wrong? I'll change it right now. Write it for me. But yeah, like these are the ones I use the most, and I generally just use like this first three or four. Like the other ones are not that common. Let's see. Read. Oh, but it's the same, isn't it? I think it's well written, or maybe just ugly.
The re is little off, and also the line after P should follow the direction of the text. So if you're
Oh,
writing
you're right.
vertical,
You're right. Like it should be like this,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. You see, I haven't touched katakana at all, and I'll rewrite this one because it's just probably ugly.
Kind of looks like so. That's the problem with
Mhm.
katakana.
What?
See, that's like the
Sorry,
problem with
what?
katakana. There is like four symbols that look very similar to each other.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we should just do a nice one because as I told you, like you kind of screenshot this one, but it's probably ugly. So maybe we can just do a nicer one for you guys, so that you can actually use, and I could explain you stuff. Uh, if you want me to explain some of them, okay. Serifu is dialogue. Doga trace is used um, when a part of a drawing, like for example, you have a character, and the character just moves his head. If that happens, you don't have to do like an extra layer necessarily. You can just with this notation tell them to redraw the head on the next position and leave the body untouched. That's basically what it is. I can explain you this on the next stream about animation. Repeat is when you loop stuff. Bude, which I hope is well written, something like that, is used uh, when you want stuff to vibrate. Like for example, have you seen like when characters are like startled or about to cry, their eyes like kind of vibrate? This is the notation you use for that. Camera shake is a camera shake like with a like small earthquake or something like that. Tome is when it is still. It's basically just like don't move this drawing. Um, Cell slide is when you want to move something from A to B, but in compositing, like not actually animated, but just uh, drag it. Track up, track back, which is camera close, camera far away. Cell rolling is kind of difficult to explain because it's a every animator hates cell rolling because it looks terrible on animation and it is a pain to notate. But it's basically when you want something to you want a a movement to be looped but without animating it. How do I say this? Uh, let's say I have a face like this and I want it to move up and down. Uh, to move up and to move down later. You see, it's just a pain to explain. Uh, You want it to move down like this, but you don't want to actually animate it. You don't want to draw it a lot of times, and you want it to loop. You do a rolling, and you tell them, okay, this is the first pose, this is the last pose, and you have to do it here, and then you have to loop it. That's basically a rolling. You use it, for example, when you don't want to make a character walk up and down. Like you just move it up and down in compositing, and it looks terrible. But sometimes you have to do it for any number of reasons, generally budget and time. Shrink paste is used when you have like a very very small character in in um, in the screen like this, but it's actually very difficult to draw anything this small. So what you would do is to draw the character on a normal size, and then say use this notation shrink paste and tell them to shrink the character up to 20% or something like that. We used a lot that on the Ren Soto video for Niji Sanji. There's a cut when he's in space, like, and he's very 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 small, and we use shrink paste. Like we drew it like normal size, and then told the people at in compositing to shrink it so that it doesn't look like a blob. Motion blur is that motion blur, but for compositing, like a character moving very fast, you notate motion blur, and the people in compositing will try to do a motion blur on it, so it looks kind of cooler. And this one I've used a couple of times is handheld cam, which is basically a camera that it's like you have it in your hand, which is kind of unstable, like it moves a bit. Sometimes they accept it, and sometimes they'll just throw it away. But I like to use it sometimes because it gives it a bit more realism. That's it for my notations. Those are the notations I use 99% of the time. The other ones are useful, but very hardly used. Nice. Well, I can stay here for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or if maybe Dango has to go or something like that, we can just leave it here. But I hope it was useful. I know we didn't talk about everything that we should have talked because, as I told you, layout is actually super deep. But I hope it was somehow useful and that you can watch it again when you have uh, questions and stuff, and it can help you a bit to begin uh, doing your work. And yeah, next week, I don't know if it's going to be at this same time. As I told you, like this exact time is kind of difficult for me, but we will let you know if we change it, maybe a bit later or earlier during the day. Nice, very 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 glad to hear that it was useful for you guys. So the next ones are going to be, as I told you, very important because we're going to talk about actual animation, like not just layout and drawing, which is something that some people leave behind. But animation drawing is very very important. Nice. So I'll stop sharing now, and you can, I don't know, you can ask questions or uh, propose more stuff in the pool. and I'll be looking at that every day. Yeah, the recording will be available just a bit after this is over. Nice. Okay, thank you guys. I'm very very happy that a lot of people came because I thought there were going to be like 5 people, but there was a lot of people, so I'm very happy. Um, and I'm also very hungry, so I'll be going. Okay, guys. See you later. Thank you for coming. It was very fun for me too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Dango, by the way, um, for planning all of this and for being patient with me and my stuff. Oh, I'll try to fix the streaming stuff too, so that we don't have to sacrifice the avatar and stuff because that's funny. Uh, I'll study how to make it better so that we can have all of that back. Okay. Okay. Bye, guys. See you next week.